The movie starts with a couple, Steven and Caroline, cleaning up Caroline's room. It's the last night of winter break in New York City, so they pack up their things as quickly as possible. Since they haven't labeled their relationship yet, they discuss taking things slow and seeing where it leads. Caroline doesn't fully agree, but decides to give it a shot for the sake of their relationship. Eventually, after tidying up the room, they start flirting and make out passionately. The scene shifts to another couple, Ed and June, who are in a committed relationship. While packing their belongings, they discuss the increasing ticket prices during the holidays. Ed, an international student from Germany, plans to return home soon. Because of this, he asks June to visit him for a weekend, but she declines, stating she can't afford the $2,000 ticket. Ed sighs deeply, understanding her situation, and assures her that it's okay if she doesn't come. He tells her he'll miss her and wishes her the best while staying back in New York. June feels guilty about this and apologizes, claiming winter break will be over really soon. Next we see another couple, Laura and Charlie, sitting in a park enjoying ice cream. They have recently started dating and try to learn more about each other each day. Since the holidays are coming up, they assure one another that they'll keep in touch during the break. Laura even agrees to attend Charlie's Christmas party to meet his family. After spending some time together at the park, they decide to return to their apartments, sharing a gentle kiss before parting ways. Later that night, Caroline rushes to June's room and urges her to hurry up. It turns out all three couples are close friends, and they plan to have a final party before winter break. As they prepare, June grabs some from her roommate's drawer, while Caroline laughs and takes pictures of her, playfully accusing her of stealing. Meanwhile, a frustrated Ed yells at his roommate Manny for inviting too many people to the party. He insists that it was meant to be a gathering among close friends only. In response, Manny just laughs and tells him to chill out. Just then, June and Caroline enter the apartment, greeting everyone cheerfully. Charlie, who also lives in the same apartment, hugs Caroline gently and catches up with her. Ed, still stressed, explains to June that Manny accidentally invited too many people, which could complicate things. He laments that they won't have enough alcohol to get completely wasted, prompting Caroline to suggest they go out and buy more drinks. Since Manny was the one who invited the entire college, he was reluctantly forced to buy more alcohol. It turns out that the girls live separately in their own apartments, but the boys all live together in a shared apartment. Moving forward, a very stressed Charlie tries to talk to Caroline about his relationship with Laura. Since Laura is in an open relationship with her boyfriend Greg, she has also been dating Charlie. However, Charlie expresses concern about what might happen when they're miles apart. He worries that he might ruin Laura's relationship with Greg by becoming too invested. Finally, he reveals to Caroline that he wants Laura to break up with Greg and enter a closed, long-term relationship with him instead. Caroline listens and advises him to relax, reminding him that they just started dating and that it's not wise to get too invested too quickly. She suggests he wait during winter break to observe their relationship and then decide on his next steps. After their chat, they go to the rooftop, where they find Steven drinking quietly. Caroline runs up to him and hugs him tightly. They chat happily about how they'll stay connected during winter break. Caroline tells Steven she will really miss him, and they share a passionate kiss. At one point, Steven suggests they go to his room and have some fun. However, Caroline declines, stating that she wants to enjoy the party with her friends. She then asks Steven if he's ever going to take her on a proper date. Steven tells her that they are not in an official relationship, so there's no need for dates. Caroline is heartbroken to hear this, and asks him what he thinks is going on between them. Steven replies that they're just seeing each other, and not officially boyfriend and girlfriend. He exclaims that he doesn't plan on being serious about them, and adds that this is just a fling. Devastated, Caroline tries to remain calm, and makes an excuse to go to the bathroom before quickly running away. She rushes down to find the party in full swing, not wanting to be seen, and hides in the bathroom, hurriedly wiping away her tears. Meanwhile, Steven's best friend Bud approaches him, and they start chatting. Just then, a very attractive girl named Melissa walks up to them and begins flirting with Steven. Steven reciprocates right back, so Bud quickly makes an excuse and walks away from the rooftop. Taking this opportunity, Steven gets closer to Melissa and continues flirting with her. Downstairs, Caroline runs up to Charlie and asks him to hand her any drink he can find. She then starts downing the whole bottle to control her grief. Just then, Laura walks into the party and hugs Charlie tightly. As they talk, more people arrive, and the party quickly turns into a massive rager. More drinks are brought in, and everyone starts getting wasted. At one point, a girl named Serena searches for more drinks. She approaches June, but ends up throwing up all over her. Infuriated, June yells at Serena and runs out of the apartment toward the bathroom. Caroline runs after her with some paper towels, but when she gets to the upper floor, she sees Steven and Melissa making out on the rooftop. Dejected, she runs back downstairs and tries to help Charlie clean up the mess below. Charlie quickly notices Caroline's depressed demeanor and realizes it must be related to Steven. In a serious tone, he tells her that she's too good for Steven, calling him a real prick at times. Hearing this, Caroline hugs Charlie and walks out of the apartment to get some fresh air. While smoking outside, she sees June angrily walking out. Caroline asks what happened, and June replies that she wants to call it a night. Caroline agrees, suggesting they head back inside to say goodbye to Ed and Charlie for the holidays. However, June refuses, saying she doesn't want to see Ed right now, and heads back to the apartment as quickly as possible. Back at the party, Charlie spots Steven making out with Melissa, and finally understands why Caroline is so upset. Furious, he confronts Steven and asks why he would do such a thing. He tells Steven how much Caroline cares about him and calls him a douchebag for hurting her. Caroline, who has returned to the party, downs one shot after another, trying to forget about Steven before attempting to leave the party. Just then, Steven runs up to her, begging to talk. Caroline agrees, and they head upstairs. Once there, Caroline asks Steven why he doesn't want to date her, and wonders what's wrong with her. Steven admits he doesn't want to be in a serious relationship because he no longer believes in true love anymore. Poor guy probably got his heart broken by a girl in middle school and hasn't been able to move on since. Moving forward, Caroline starts accusing Steven of her and tells him he isn't capable of putting effort into any relationship at all. Hearing all this, Steven finally starts with his sob story. He tells Caroline about this charming girl that he dated and was madly in love with in high school. However, the girl ended up cheating on him, so now, as expected, he has to hurt every single girl he meets. Thankfully, Caroline quickly realizes this, so she refuses to take any of his emotional baggage. Infuriated, she yells at him for treating her so poorly and asks him what he wants. Steven apologizes, not for hurting her, but for making her think they were in a relationship. Realizing she's had enough, Caroline decides to treat Steven the way he treated her, telling him that there are plenty of guys at the party and that she might take one of them home. She then storms away. As expected, Steven now feels betrayed by Caroline, even though he was the one who wanted them to just have a fling. He tries to call his friends for support, but they ignore him. Melissa approaches him again and asks what happened. Suddenly, Steven forgets everything about Caroline and goes back to flirting with Melissa. Meanwhile, Caroline sits downstairs with Charlie, snacking on cookies and chatting about random things. At one point, Caroline decides to take a cute picture of them together. Charlie doesn't think much of it and smiles. He then walks away to meet his friends. After he leaves, Caroline edits the picture to make them look like a couple and sends it to Steven. Steven, who is busy making out with Melissa, pulls out his phone after getting a notification. He sees the picture from Caroline and suddenly feels upset. Melissa reassures him, saying some girls are just clingy, adding that she knows how to take a hint and never get serious with guys. This only makes things worse for Steven, as he realizes Caroline genuinely wants him, while the other girls just see him as a pastime. Downstairs, Caroline continues flirting with Charlie and even tries to kiss him. However, Laura sees this just in time and threatens Caroline to stay away from her boyfriend. Laura then pulls Charlie upstairs for a talk. Caroline, left alone, grabs a drink and tries to eavesdrop on their conversation. She overhears them quarreling for a while, until a very emotional Laura runs downstairs and angrily grabs her coat. She then glares at Caroline and runs out of the apartment. Shortly after, a very anxious Charlie comes back downstairs, and Caroline immediately moves to console him. She assures him that everything will be okay, and kisses him passionately. At that moment, Steven walks in and accuses Caroline of trying to make him jealous. Caroline retorts that she's just having a fling with Charlie, since they aren't in an official relationship. Realizing that Caroline was only using him, Charlie angrily insults her before storming out. After he leaves, Steven approaches Caroline and tries to apologize, but she ignores him and ends their relationship once and for all. Steven, desperate, urges her to listen, begging her to stay, but Caroline walks out. Frustrated, Steven punches the door in anger and then goes around the apartment, kicking everyone out. He even tells Melissa to leave, explaining that the party's over. When she tries to kiss him, he pushes her away and urges her to go. This marks the end of Steven and Caroline, as they part ways for good. The scene then cuts to a day earlier, where Ed is speaking to his mom on the phone, explaining that he can't permanently move back to Germany. However, his mother tells him that she can no longer afford his expenses, so he'll have to return. Ed nods and tells her that he won't come back to New York after the winter break. It turns out that Ed accidentally missed the deadline to renew his visa, which is now permanently expired. Since renewing it now is too expensive, he must leave the US for good. When Charlie learns about this, he expresses that he'll miss Ed and offers to help in any way he can. Charlie asks if June knows about the situation, but Ed doesn't respond. The scene shifts back to the beginning of the party, where Caroline and June are chatting casually. At one point, Caroline asks if Ed will be around for Christmas, but June replies that he won't, as he has to visit his parents this time. Shortly after, they arrive at the party and cheerfully greet everyone. June immediately runs to Ed and kisses him passionately. The two sit together, chatting happily about their lives. They take Polaroids off each other and have a lot of fun. Just as Ed is about to tell June about his move back home, there's a knock at the door. He runs to the door and welcomes a couple more people to the party. That's when Caroline and Charlie also come towards them, presumably after Caroline's altercation with Steven, and try to clear the air a little. June, unbeknownst to Ed's plan, just continues clicking Polaroids of her friends. Later, June asks Ed what he wants to tell her, but Ed keeps changing the subject, too afraid to reveal the truth. He distracts her by engaging with others at the party. The two even play beer pong with Charlie and Laura, momentarily forgetting their earlier conversation. As they're about to head upstairs, a very drunk Serena stumbles over and vomits on June. Furious, June yells at her and rushes upstairs to clean up. Laura follows to help her. After cleaning up in the bathroom, June walks out and bumps into Charlie, who asks if she's okay. June sarcastically replies that everything is fantastic. Assuming Ed has told her about the visa situation, Charlie asks how she's holding up. Confused, June demands to know what he's talking about, and Charlie accidentally reveals Ed's visa issue. Heartbroken and angry, June runs out of the apartment. Panicked, Charlie chases after her but realizes she's already gone. He nervously tells Ed that he accidentally spilled the secret to June. In shock, Ed bolts out the door to find her. When he reaches June's apartment, he tries to make lighthearted jokes to ease the tension, but June, now furious, confronts him about the visa problem. She calls him an idiot for not renewing it on time and demands that he fix it. Ed explains that his mother can't afford his fees alone and has refused to move to the US with him, meaning he'll have to return to Germany permanently. June argues that he's an adult and could easily support himself in the US, but Ed insists he can't leave his mother behind, especially since his father is no longer around. Eventually, June sighs and pleads with Ed to find a solution, expressing how much she loves him. She then asks if he loves her too, but Ed, avoiding her gaze, says it's more complicated than that. He suggests that they were bound to break up anyway, so they shouldn't take this too seriously. Stunned, June yells at him for wasting 3 years of her life and calls him a scumbag for toying with her feelings. After a moment of silence, June wonders aloud if they have a future together. Ed says nothing and looks away. Taking his silence as confirmation, June suggests they break up now, since they won't see each other again. Ed agrees, and June immediately gets up to open the door for him to leave. Ed bids her goodbye, but she avoids looking at him and slams the door behind him. June breaks down crying, reflecting on the memories she shared with Ed. Meanwhile, Ed, unable to process everything, sits on the side of the road, contemplating what's next. As he sits there, Charlie passes by and recognizes him. Concerned, Charlie asks if Ed is okay. When Ed doesn't respond, Charlie asks again if things worked out with June. Ed finally replies, saying that he and June are officially done. Hearing this, Charlie apologizes, blaming himself for their breakup, but Ed assures him it's not his fault. The two then spend the rest of their time sitting out in the cold, talking about other things. This concludes the story of Ed and June, with the two parting ways, uncertain about their future. Laura and Charlie's story is next, with the scene moving back to the beginning of the party. Laura, anxious to meet Charlie and his friends, nervously knocks on the door. June opens it with a cheerful greeting, and the two share a brief hug, catching up with each other. Just then, Charlie walks downstairs and happily greets Laura. He asks how she's doing, to which Laura replies that she wants to talk to him in private. Charlie readily agrees, and they walk into his room. There, Laura tells him that she has finally understood his perspective and wants to be with him. She then reveals that she has officially broken up with Greg. Charlie is elated and thanks her for her decision. They both confess that they really like each other and want to take their relationship to the next level. Excited, Charlie suggests they go out and party to celebrate. However, Laura stops him, closes the door, and walks closer to kiss him passionately. Afterward, they join the party, playing beer pong with Ed and June and mingling with other guests. At that moment, Serena pukes on June, prompting Laura to rush over to help clean up the mess. While doing so, Laura and June bond really well. Eventually, June realizes the stain won't come off, so she decides to head home to change. That's when she learns about Ed's visa problem, and things just go downhill after that. Meanwhile, Laura approaches Steven and chats with him briefly before heading downstairs to help Charlie with some chores. Charlie mentions that he smells bad from the vomit and needs to change. He runs into his room and pulls out fresh clothes, continuing to talk to Laura, who stands just outside the door. He apologizes for dragging her into the chaos of the party, but Laura assures him that she needs the distraction. She explains that her breakup with Greg was heated, with Greg insulting her and telling her that no one would ever love her again. In response, Charlie blurts out that he loves her and would love to be with her. Laura admits that she loves him too. In a dazed state, Charlie opens the door and, without thinking, kisses her passionately. Shortly after, Charlie heads upstairs to check on a commotion. There, he finds Steven making out with Melissa and angrily confronts him for cheating on Caroline. The situation escalates, and Steven, frustrated, tells Charlie that his relationship with Laura will never work out. He exclaims that Laura started seeing him while she was still with Greg, so it's obvious that she'll cheat on him too when the next guy comes around. As expected, Charlie denies this, insisting that he and Laura love each other, before storming off back to his room. Once there, he apologizes to Laura for everything that has happened. Laura reassures him that it's okay, and begins to explain how manipulative Greg is. She reveals that Greg cheated on her in high school, and because she didn't want to lose him, they agreed to an open relationship. Hearing this, Charlie promises Laura that he'll never treat her badly, and kisses her. The two make out passionately, and proceed to make love. Later, they cuddle with each other while confessing that they're madly in love with each other. Moments later, Charlie gets dressed and heads to check on the party. Before leaving, he turns to Laura and asks if she's serious about him. It's clear that Steven's words have shaken him, and he doesn't want to take any chances. He admits they moved fast in one night, and just wants to make sure they're on the same page. Laura reassures him, explaining that she really likes him because he's smart, honest, and caring. She asserts that she sees a future with him, which is why she moves on so quickly. Despite her reassurances, Charlie struggles to accept that Laura could move on so soon after her breakup. Moving forward, Laura tries to get closer to Charlie and kiss him, but Charlie gently pushes her away and walks out of the room. After he leaves, Laura looks around in boredom and spots a Polaroid of Charlie and Caroline on the bedside table. Her heart immediately sinks, and she's unsure how to react. Meanwhile, Charlie steps outside and runs into Caroline. He tells her that he just made love to Laura, but isn't sure where things are headed. They sit down on the sofa munching on cookies. In a playful moment, Caroline snaps a picture with Charlie and sends it to Steven to make him jealous. After taking the picture, Charlie returns to the room to find Laura texting someone. When he asks, she says she's talking to her cousin. Charlie nods and begins folding his clothes. Suddenly, they hear a loud bang outside. Charlie tries to go check on the situation, but Laura scoffs, accusing him of leaving her again and again. However, Charlie simply apologizes and walks out. As he leaves, Laura tells him she loves him, but he continues to ignore her. Feeling betrayed, Laura gets dressed and exits the room as well. That's when she sees Caroline and Charlie hugging each other tightly. Infuriated, she insults Caroline and asks her to leave her boyfriend alone. She then drags Charlie upstairs to have a talk with him. There, she confronts him, asking why he's suddenly avoiding her after just one night. Charlie gives vague answers, asserting that he doesn't want to talk about it. Desperate to make things right, Laura suggests spending winter break together to get to know each other better. But Charlie immediately declines and tells her she needs to go home. Heartbroken, Laura tearfully reminds him that she broke up with Greg for him, to which Charlie responds that he never asked her to. As expected, Laura breaks down crying, accusing Charlie of not loving her and only using her. Through her sobs, she asks why he kissed her and slept with her if he wasn't ready to commit. Devastated, she stumbles out of the apartment. After she leaves, Caroline consoles Charlie and tries to get closer to him. Whilst assuring him that everything will work out, she kisses him. Just then, Steven walks in and starts arguing with Caroline, accusing her of taking things too far and using Charlie to make him jealous. Charlie quickly realizes what's going on and angrily insults Caroline before storming out. This ends the story of Charlie and Laura, with the two parting ways, unsure of what the future holds for them. Later, Charlie sees Ed sitting down on the side of the road and approaches him. The two talk about all of their relationships ending on the same night and start laughing to ease the pain. Eventually, Ed gets serious and urges Charlie to make things right with Laura. Charlie nods, and then asks Ed to go back to June and fix things as well. Both of them realize that they can't just let their relationships go down the drain, so they plan on making things right as soon as possible. Early the next morning, Charlie begs Laura to meet him one last time. When Laura finally agrees, he tells her that he doesn't want to lose her. However, Laura becomes even angrier, yelling at Charlie for misleading her and flirting with Caroline right in front of her. Charlie insists that he really likes her and cares about her, even suggesting that they could have a future together. But when Laura asks if he loves her, he doesn't reply. Laura realizes what she has to do and tells Charlie that she doesn't want to see him ever again. Meanwhile, Ed rushes to June's apartment and tells her he wants to make things right. He insists that he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life without her. But June doesn't believe him and says they're better off breaking up. Undeterred, Ed begs her to give him another chance, claiming that what they have is special. Touched by his sincerity, June reconsiders and asks how things would work between them. Ed admits he doesn't have a clear answer, but promises to figure it out because he loves her. June decides to believe him and takes him back. Ultimately, the two kiss and apologize profusely for what happened the night before. At the same time, Caroline rushes to comfort Charlie after hearing that Laura didn't take him back. She assures him that he'll be fine soon, cracking lighthearted jokes to cheer him up. She then manages to take him back to the apartment and finally bids him goodbye for winter break. After Charlie heads back to his room, Caroline approaches Steven and apologizes for stooping so low to hurt him. Steven assumes that Caroline will get back with him now that she realizes her mistake, but to his surprise, she tells him they have no future together. With that, Caroline walks out of the apartment. Later, Steven, Ed, and Charlie all stand together at the rooftop and chat for a while. They discuss when their flights are and try to distract themselves from everything that happened the previous night. The movie finally with the three of them wishing each other a Merry Christmas and exchanging goodbyes before winter break.